Ascendant in Scorpio. When we say that someone is of Scorpio, it is because he was born between October 23 and November 22, approximately. The period in which the sun transits that sign. Instead, to know if the ascendant is in Scorpio, one needs to know the time and place of birth to determine what was the sign that appeared on the horizon at the east point at the time of the first breath. When you are born with Scorpio showing yourself in the east, destiny will propose you to learn to solve intense conflicts and reinvent yourself to go discovering yourself increasingly powerful and resolute. A person may be of any sign, but depending on the time and place of birth, he may have ascendant in Scorpio, and will be signed by a destiny of dramatic intensity and of powerful conflicting and healing interaction. Scorpio is a fixed sign, just like Taurus, Leo, and Aquarius, and this mode marks a destination in which to develop commitment and stability. Scorpio is also of water, just like Cancer and Pisces, and poses a life of water and a fixed mode linked to effective commitment. It must therefore witness to a greater or lesser extent vigorous and dramatic scenes of power and emotional conflict in its immediate surroundings. Generally, their parents had marked differences in how they handled money or power in very different ways, and even in the worst case, were mistreated or marginalized because of this disparity. It is worth differentiating. If you're the moon in Scorpio, you need the conflict and the intensity to feel safe. If you are Sun in Scorpio, you are intense, powerful, and complex. If you are an ascendant in Scorpio, you should learn to develop strength in intensity and healing capacity in conflict. Life leads him, more than other ascendants, to go through situations of emotional, economic, or even physical abuse, because his destiny is to live the dark subjects, to be the one who denounces them and shows us our shortcomings of consciousness. He must become an expert in understanding, without condemning or justifying, the 7 capital sins: lust, laziness, greed, anger, envy, covetousness, and pride. Becoming a specialist in our sin will lead you to work in professions linked to healing or transformative commitment, denouncing and resigning conflicts that societies prefer not to see. To pursue his destiny as a healer, he must necessarily be involved in human suffering and pain. It is common for the ascendant in Scorpio to fear the intensity of his destiny and not want to assume it. If it rejects its complexity and fails to assume its healing capacity, it exacerbates conflicts and creates even more tension in its life and its environment. The first step to take your Scorpion path of healing will be to realize that external enemies are irreversibly corresponding to internal demons, that the problems you suffer by fault of others are only mirrors of your own personal darkness. He attracts conflicting people, because with them he lives his own conflictivity. That is why their relationships are intense and absolutist, with strong egos, struggling to submit and destroy each other. If you manage to stop blaming others for your problems, you will begin to regain power to master the intensity of your own life. Although it may seem like a complex and twisted destiny, the key will be to become an expert knowledgeable of the dark depths of the human soul and to be able to give the good news that it is not fault of anyone, but is part of the very essence of all individuals. See how we live embroiled in misery, and how hard it is for us to transcend it, for we are accustomed to misery and complaint. The ascendant in Scorpio proposes crossing guilt and fears and allowing ourselves to stop suffering, noting that, if we give ourselves the opportunity to enjoy what is there without pretending impossible paradises, we generate envy and the environment becomes even more threatening, or we challenge others to also build a destiny where to recognize how much happiness they can tolerate and sustain, including the complications of life without discouraging. Our conscience is not prepared to be fully happy. We live in the paradox of wanting to be happy within a system of beliefs that does not allow us to really be happy because it longs for a life without problems that will never happen. Ascendant Scorpio organizes in a particular way the astrological houses or the scenes of the birth card. But in some birth cards with ascending in Scorpion, a phenomenon called intercepted signs occurs, which modifies this logic and causes, in that particular case, not all houses to match the elements I describe here. In any case, the ascending matrix and its corresponding distribution of elements and signs works the same. You will have to add topics when intercepted signs appear and add that information as extra topics that add scenarios and lessons, but that does not disable what is described below: how to plant different apprentices of a Scorpio ascendant individuality scenarios. Scorpio in House 1. Deep commitment to his coming into the world or unnecessary intensity and conflicting provocation. The first sign that appears on the birth card of an ascending Scorpion is Scorpio and starts the birth card or the house 1 or the ascendant, for they are the same. His way of coming out into the world will be intense and committed, expressed with passion, vehemence, and with a dramatic gestuality. House 1 also speaks of the physical appearance, and the ascendant in Scorpio usually has a particular, rare, unaligned, or intensely provocative presence. The possibility of being aware or not of your destiny of commitment to pain, to help heal it, will be offset by events in your life that lead you to the conflicting, intense, deep, and antagonistic. His Scorpion energy will take him into the dark and painful, so that he activates his qualities of deep healer of the suffering that surrounds him. He will recognize his intense personality according to how boldly he responds to the intense scenes and to the vigorous and vehement people who challenge him in games of power, domination, and submission. You must learn to go out into the world trusting in your ability to face conflicts and solve them, because to astonish life with Scorpio is to come out perceiving the denied and the imperfect, to denounce and resolve it. To be afraid of the intensity of your own life is to refuse to be yourself. Your life mirrors your own complex reality, and therefore your relationships will never be perfect, nor quiet or harmonious. His exit door to the world is dyed by the fierce darkness of Scorpio, and for this reason he perceives too much. It is so much what it manages to see and feel that it can be scared of its own intense sensitivity. So it tends to repress itself and not to say what it thinks or to hide what it really wants. Pisces in House 5. Empathy, sensitivity when expressed or exaggerated, and delusional style. The fifth sign of the ascendant in Scorpio is Pisces, and suggests great empathy and seduction to reach others and influence their surroundings. House 5 activates a Piscean expressiveness that challenges him to show his extreme compassion and solidarity. Far from all abstraction, compassion is very concrete. It means to feel what another feels, and this prepares him to renounce any ideological or religious protection to make contact with the soul. Often the ascendant in Scorpio seems contained or repressed, for when he opens his heart, he takes the risk of a sentimental immensity that can overflow him. Compassion should dispel his fear of exposure, and thus be able to become the one who expresses the needs of his environment as if they were his own. For this reason, when he finally dares to say what he feels, he tends to be vehement and judgmental. Fish in the house of identity dissolves the occurrence that one's own pain is more important than that of others. What hurts another hurts him too. Solvent and universal fishes leads you to feel in your own heart the fear and love that circulates throughout humanity. At a level of tension, Pisces in House 5 can lead you to become what your surroundings want, and make it difficult for you to recognize your own desires and live embodying the dreams of others as if they were your own, because it is easier for him to be what his surroundings long for, rather than to go into the complexity of his own desire. His permeable identity makes him chaotic. Since he does not know how to set limits or take care of himself, he tries to protect himself by attaching a tough and unbreakable style so as not to get lost in others. It can also be confused with self-perception, believing someone superior, and building an identity overflowing with pathological narcissistic delusions. At an integrated level, the House 5 in Pisces suggests immense creative sensitivity to express itself through art, music, or esoteric. It is always recommended to find expressive exit paths that allow you to drain your inexhaustible emotional receptivity. House 5 in Pisces also suggests bondage with children and symbolizes a relationship of maximum empathy and affection. However, at a level of tension, he notices some difficulty in being able to be objective and set the right limits, as they often embody their own unlived fantasies and tend to justify any of their actions. You should beware of excessive idealization, as a relationship through spells leads to an outcome of disillusionment and disappointment. Cancer in House 9. Vocation to care and protect, or is it only allowed to rely on what is close? And known, the 9th sign of the Ascendant in Scorpio is Cancer, and suggests that his vocation will be associated with caring and nurturing, but warns of an excessive need to feel safe before taking risks, or difficulty in trusting if he does not know people thoroughly. Cancer quality needs to take time and be tested before it really surrenders, which is why it often becomes more suspicious than necessary. At a level of tension, Cancers, closed and fearful, in the zone of expansion and confidence, forms a very antagonistic mixture that tends to activate the most negative side that leads the person to need too much time to open up and surrender. The same will happen to you when you get into institutions, because to rely on an educational project or a guide, you will test everything before you feel comfortable and safe to trust. In order to be able to admire someone or make it his teacher, he will first need to know his human essence, as it does not reach him just by listening to what that person preaches. It has a very personal way of entrusting itself to a religion, for if it does not perceive that that religion truly helps the human being in concrete and efficient ways, it will not be able to give it any value or moral authority. House 9 also symbolizes academic training, and Cancer suggests that you should choose vocational paths that include sensitivity and select careers that contact you with the human and vulnerable, such as medicine or psychology. In addition, House 9 proposes contact with foreigners, and Cancer emphasizes the possibility of living in other countries, or that your family lives far away. It also suggests a great ability to feel at home anywhere, release your fearful nature, to discover how easy it is to feel comfortable in other cultures. It also symbolizes the ability to calm down when you move away from your family and take refuge abroad or go away when conflicts arise at home. Scenarios of Sagittarius materialization in House 2. Confidence and vitality to generate abundance or exaggerated economic waste. The second sign of the ascending Scorpio is Sagittarius and suggests the complex alchemy of reuniting the House 2, associated with material stability and economic security, with the restless and risky Sagittario, who tends to give him an exaggerated way of handling his resources. At a level of tension, it makes you feel that you never reach, or that you always need more money. At an integration level, it gives you maximum enthusiasm and confidence to generate ever greater abundance. Similarly, conflicting Sagittarius can give you an unpleasant feeling that material abundance will never come to your life, because it always seems to be far away, or that it is to come but never ends up happening. Maybe you also have too many economic expectations that don't match your reality, and you're obsessed or struggling to find more productive jobs that generate more resources. You will have to learn to tolerate the great distance between the dreamed and the possible, to begin to gradually build your material wealth. The lush Sagittarian quality, instead of pushing you, becomes a motor that invites you to grow and drives you to seek new and better sources of resources. On a more interesting level, Sagittarius in the House of Possessions proposes to exhaust individual selfishness to open up to the abundance that appears when he relies on transcendent planes. He offers dedication and confidence in his investments, because the more he is encouraged to invest in what he likes and gives him joy, the better it will be. The more it generates resources with activities associated with his vocation, the more economic abundance he will obtain. Sagittario proposes, rather than obsessing, to enjoy what it generates and trust in working what it likes, even empowering other people and becoming a teacher and referent in work or economic issues. Sagittarius in the area of finance suggests investing also in jobs associated with travel, languages or abroad, or generating money being a guide, teacher or teacher of others. In a good alchemy, Sagittarius in House 2 suggests economic abundance. Aries in House 6, body vitality or stressful, everyday life, and self-destructive health The sixth sign of the ascending Scorpio is Aries, and is associated with the need to face their daily work, respecting their cycles and their times. At a level of tension, the Arian quality, agile and fast in the area of observation and daily order, suggests a very complicated mix, because although it allows you to give quick answers to everyday tasks, it also angers you before any irrelevant detail, and tends to live tense and angry. At an integration level, the intense combative Arian quality can turn you into an enthusiastic leader at work, but it can also generate friction and fighting with those you share your work when they do not respond to your accelerated times. He organizes quickly and quickly understands what his routines and working methods will be, but often suffers from the time difference with those with whom he works. House 6 also symbolizes physical health. His body tends to take over and somatize a certain level of self-aggression and accumulated stress. Anxious and compulsive in their eating habits tends to discharge their voracity into food. Although his physique is a receptacle of much contained aggressiveness, it also suggests great vitality and physical strength, which makes him a resilient being, and that always seems to be renewing with new energy to rise and start again. Reading at House 10, creativity and professional leadership or tyrannical structures at work. The 10th sign of the ascendant Scorpio is Leo and suggests your great need to stand out at a professional level. He often puts a lot of emphasis on getting high and achieving professional success. Leonian quality needs to be shown and recognized even at the risk of challenging norms or the figures of authority. Leo is passionate and fiery, and gives him the utmost confidence to move forward in the demanding world of work, but warns of the frustrations he often goes through. Leo does intend to impose his time and his caprices in the areas of work that compel him to respect his laws and his particular requirements and demands. If you want to be valued and virtuous in your work, you must learn to obey no mess, respect your bosses, and go slowly. Reading in the house of the profession suggests putting the heart in work with passion and creativity beyond the recognition achieved. Leo needs to feel cheerful and vital in his work, and that is why the work environment always requires him to mature so as not to retire, offended every time he is evaluated or required tasks that dislike him. The more he accepts labor standards, the more he benefits as he is being perfected so that he can grow and shine more and more in his profession. At an integration level, Leo at House X understands that working committedly and meeting the requirements of his bosses improves his career growth opportunities. You must find a way to be obedient without hindering your creative projects, as Leo benefits when he feels that he is doing his tasks well. When you work on projects, you feel important. You make commitments and put your heart into your work, no matter how hard and demanding it is. The House X in Leo also symbolizes the relationship with his father, and in a level of tension, he may have experienced him as a selfish, greedy, and narcissistic man. At an integration level, the father was a figure admired and idealized for his generosity and creativity. Link scenarios: Capricorn in House 3. Efficiency and realism or authoritarianism and coldness to communicate. The third sign of the ascendant in Scorpio is Capricorn and suggests a pragmatic and responsible way to communicate all the complexity he perceives. Capricorn makes you cautious and preventive when speaking, and that allows you to communicate the things that need to be said in the right tones and ways. At a level of tension, Capricorn, immovable and solid in the house of associations and words, can make it too strong, ruthless, and sententious. He points out what others prefer to deny. However, he must learn the right ways and ways to communicate without hurting or frightening his surroundings. His pragmatism understands that, beyond the pain that he can generate with what he says, it is worth communicating anyway, because the nature of what he said will prove useful and healing to those who listen to him. Capricorn in House 3 may make you feel very alone in your way of seeing the world, because your realistic and pragmatic observation perceives the difficulty we have to communicate. It even leads him to perceive that communication between people is usually almost null, observes how we cannot listen to each other, because our minds are not free and our ears are filled with what we already know. That is why we cannot include the novelty that the other has to tell us. At a level of tension, your role of denouncing denied darkness can fascinate you and make you relentless by feeling powerful when you scandalize with your words. He understood the pleasure that it produces to criticize and talk about unhappiness. Talking about misfortunes attracts and has a good press. At another level of tension, Capricorn in the area of ideas can also overwhelm him with excessive demands of how things should be and make him complaining and criticizing, as he compares his imperfect reality to his supposed and unattainable all of perfection. As he is inside, he is outside, and therefore he also feels the opinions of others excessively tough and authoritarian and makes it difficult for him to exchange opinions or the possibility of dialogue and reach agreements. Capricorn in House 3 reports how the first brotherly ties brothers, cousins were, and suggests excessive adaptation or experiences of loneliness. The bond with the brothers and sisters can be distant, lonely, or of extreme responsibility and work. Those early relationships imposed a maturity that she then reproduces in a responsible but cold style when relating to her peers in adulthood. Taurus, in House 7, is the couple the refuge of the senses, or has an excessive attachment and dependence on the couple. The seventh sign of the Ascendant in Scorpio is Taurus and is associated with a committed and intense way of connecting with the partner and partners. Taurus in House 7 is attracted to powerful and sensual people with intense desires and strong personalities. He often fascinates people with a lot of money as well, because he loves the powerful in whom he projects the one who has infinite energy availability. It is enchanted with economic power, but it can also be embellished with those who possess high sexual intensity, great bodily vitality, or imposing personality. This ascendant is attracted to those other people in whom he projects the infinite power he longs to possess for himself. The other brings to his life his kingdom of taurine abundance. The couple has managed to arm their own empire and invites him to participate in his exuberance, but warns about the possibility of being trapped in that alien world that, although comfortable, also requires him to adapt to the norms of the other and can suffer from excessively suffocating quiet and unchallenged. He must learn to accept the rhythms and tastes of another who seems unwilling to give up places or customs. At a level of tension, she feels her partner stubborn and dominant, who poses a relationship always equal to herself, comfortable but lacking in challenges or stimulating novelty. Love invites him to reunite Scorpio with Taurus, both fixed voice and absolutist signs, and usually generates relationships of jealousy and claims and, in extreme cases, submission. Since childhood, he became accustomed to the relationship of his parents and assumed that the bond of mate can include domination and ill treatment, since they had a difficult relationship of continuous struggle between love and possessiveness, and between contempt and attraction. He may even feel the son of hatred and not of love. In order not to repeat this scourge and contempt in your own partner, it will be crucial that you resignify the relationship of abuse of your parents, to not repeat that pattern of a bad love, or perpetuate the association of love with pain and submission. On a healthier level, Tarot proposes to love in a simple and smooth way. Let yourself be driven by intense magnetism and simply enjoy love. The taurine quality suggests a sustained presence in a relationship without prejudice and a full acceptance, a loving relationship in which both accept one another without pretending to change. At a good level of loving integration, the couple can become a party of sensuality and eroticism, where to activate all the poetry of the senses and where to live, love, as a space of pleasure, refuge, and rest. Let the other person be with their times and their ways to enjoy it, without pretending to change it. If you really love your partner, you should not try to transform him, because love is acceptance and not questioning. To think and want to change the other is not love, but repression. A love that judges the other, rather, is torture. You must be very careful not to repeat stories of family submission and let your partner be as you want, because if you want to change her again, appears the pain, and the relationship will no longer be of love, but of possession. Be careful that if there is no freedom in your partner, there is usually subtle slavery. Taurus in House 7 also arms societies with powerful and wealthy people. And just like in matters of couple, he will have to find the right alchemy between the attraction to the powerful who promises abundance and the danger of submission and to the power games to which he usually submits to obtain economic benefits in his commercial societies. Virgo in House 11. Efficient friends and collaborators or prejudiced and restrictive ties. The 11th sign of the Ascendant, Scorpio, is Virgo and suggests both acceptance and useful collaboration in group proposals, as well as criticism, distrust, and difficulty in opening up to projects that are not dependent on your own will, or that you cannot control. Her way of opening up to groups will be cautious and questioning, as Virgo needs to observe to understand and discriminate between true friendships or superficial relationships, or those that seek only his personal benefit. You must learn to discern with whom it is worth facing projects in order to be able to harness the talents of the virgin quality, which promises efficient and beneficial work. When you can rely on working with friends, Virgo finds it difficult to trust the different, and it becomes difficult to find the right alchemy in an area that proposes changes and interruptions. So he tends to find thousands of excuses to delay any new project that life presents him. On a more integrated level, he suggests allowing himself to perceive that, in the break-ins and changes of plans, his life becomes more interesting and fun, and he finds that those unforeseen and disruptions tend to take him out of his sick routines, and take him out of his sick routines and take him to healthier and less omnipotent places. Virgo in House 11 at a level of acceptance allows you to perceive the amount of quantum leaps that have come into your life thanks to the changes and interruptions of your plans. Accept the failures or deviations from your plans as creative expressions of the more subtle dimensions of life that are being expressed and trying to modify and improve your projects. The Virginian quality in the 11th house can make you an active recipient of new projects and an efficient communicator of futuristic ideas, and disposes you to work to become a doer of the new. Emotional scenarios, Aquarium in House 4. Freedom and creativity to face emotional depths or coldness and emotional disinterest. The 4th sign of the Ascendant in Scorpio is Aquarius and reveals a separate and discontinuous emotional base, free, light, and universal. The Ascendant in Scorpio tends to take refuge in intellect and rational explanations to justify his distance and detachment from the family. This leads him to shield himself in disconnection to protect himself from the intensity and conflicts of his immediate environment. If your Scorpion destiny tears you off and hurts you, the Aquarian quality of the House 4 allows you to disconnect to not feel pain and protect yourself by putting your emotions behind a glass so that nothing, or emotions behind a glass so that nothing or anyone will harm you. Aquarius in House 4 makes him feel very different from his family, perceived as the strange, the not fit, or the exiled. They tend to do things very differently than their ancestors did, and they do not validate or understand the choices of their home family. Aquarius in the area of ancestors may suggest a request to take care of an inheritance of forgotten family creativity, and to carry it out may be whoever pays the cost, and becomes the eccentric or the inverse in that environment. A discontinuous bond is created with the family, because when it is close it becomes cluttered, but when far away it needs to reconnect. He suggests that his parents were different from conventional or had an intermittent bond that led him through situations of instability and sudden abandonments in his childhood. The relationship between her parents was generally conflicting and fighting. Those who should be loved and cared for were in continual dispute, so it is difficult for him to perceive that there was love at his origin, and rather he experiences all the opposite. This conflict between those who should have loved one another led him to feel the sun of antagonism, and this particular feeling makes him see life as a great world of battles, and feel that love and care also involve continuous fighting. At a level of tension, the disconnected sign of Aquarius leads him to be freezed emotionally and always in flight from effective commitments. It may also suggest belonging to a family or a nation that lives as an indomitable, crazy, and chaotic place with great difficulty in rooting or feeling part of that people. At a more integrated level, the House 4 in Aquarius gives you a very open emotional base, in which the world pain is experienced as one's own. but with the ability not to get stuck to the suffering of your environment. Aquarius can solidarize without symbiosis. Be efficient collaborator without being destroyed by the intensity and problems of others. The free and disengaged Aquarian quality allows you to act with maximum loving dedication, but knowing when it is time to cut relationships or to withdraw from conflicts. Aquarius, in his emotional roots, longs to live in a world without nations and borders, because he perceives the planet Earth as a great home for all, beyond political, economic, or ideological boundaries. In his strong desire to an egalitarian world, he can confront and question people with retrograde ideologies or excessive dogmatism. Gemini in House 8, ability to put words to the most complex emotions or intelligent rational justifications, not to get involved, the 8th sign of the ascending Scorpio, is Gemini, and although it finds a good alchemy for this complex combination, it enables it to explicit what the rest denies to, become the great communicator of the unconscious, and the denied because it found the deep and certain words to clarify the most complex situations. At a level of tension, Gemini in the area of transformation suggests a mind that has no peace because it is always questioning, deepening, and denouncing. It denounces a personality that tends to shield itself in sagacity and intellect to avoid connecting with what it feels, and escapes suffering with intelligent explanations and cunning words, as it tries to avoid pain through mental games and rational justification. House 8 suggests the need to overcome a superficial level of Gemini, evading conflicts with intelligent justifications, to begin to rely on a form of intelligence that penetrates their sufferings and understands them deeply to try to heal them. At a more integrated level, the Geminian quality contacts pain without prejudice or condemnation, without fear and without wanting to explain it, but simply accepting it but not getting used to it. In his excessive attachment to judging others and imposing his own morality, he tends to catalog those who think differently as enemies. He will need to be honest and be aware that his anger with someone who has a different opinion denounces an excessive importance to his own ideas. He will have to transcend a gross level of the Geminian that divides and catalogs between good and bad, to begin to accept his own contradictions, for he himself is carried through complex ambivalences where the good and the bad are intermingled and confused. House 8 in Geminis also suggests that, even if the person does not know at the time of his birth, the family was going through a crisis between brothers and sisters due to struggles and questions about the equitable distribution of money and power. There were communication problems that made it very difficult to distinguish between true and false, and probably also many complications of procedures and papers. The connective tension of its origin has left a mark of mistrust that can make it difficult for you to speak or to feel powerful, or to become uncompromising and not to give in or be able to consider dissenting opinions whenever you are embroiled in a discussion or in a complex negotiation. Libra in House 12, high perception of the desires of others or hysterical falsehood that pleases to benefit the 11th sign of the ascending Scorpio, is Libra and suggests a maximum wisdom to harmonize that allows you to go through intense situations, trusting that you will capture the words and actions necessary to pacify conflicts, but warns some fascination for pleasing and getting well, which can lead you to avoid walking your path of conflict whistleblower, the House 12 in Libra. At a level of tension, fears its fate of Scorpion conflict and imposes a fictitious peace by denying what is happening and repressing the problems it should face in time and form. He lives with fear of generating tension when bound, and therefore, often to avoid confrontation, he follows abusive orders or submits himself to hostile people so as not to confront them or generate greater friction. His tendency to take refuge in ideas of harmony and stability may end up locking him in a bunker of denial. Living in your chimera will only bring you more trouble and contaminate your destiny as a healer of pain and conflict. At an integration level, Libra in the 12th house suggests great resonance with the other and proposes to encourage you to address any complexity link, trusting that you will have loving lucidity to understanding and improve even the most complex relationships because you will know how to find new and better agreements. Libra gives you maximum wisdom to pacify the most conflicting and tumultuous relationships, and provides it with a particular pacifist quality that minimizes fights and optimizes agreements, achieving that all people can feel heard and taken into account. Summary of the Ascendant in Scorpion mode. Fixed, committed. Element, water, sensitivity. Learning by destination, sensitive, healer, and therapist. Powerful and transformative, committed. Tendency, staying refuge in a superficial style that generates more conflict. It suffers. Unequal bond between parents, very powerful, and even manipulative people. Regent planet, Pluto, former ruler Mars. Parts of the body that govern and of special vulnerability, excretory apparatus, and reproductive organs. Period of fundamental learning, from 28 to 35 years, which will condition the deployment of your life mainly after 49. Life mission, to understand pain and commit to healing it. Misunderstand pain and commit to healing it. Misunderstanding of the mission, getting caught in eternal games of power and paranoia. Distribution of signs for ascending in Scorpio. Their action destination is Scorpio. Generate with Sagittarius. Communicate with Capricorn. Emotionally stabilize with Aquarius. Express with Pisces. Arranging with Aries. Complement with Tauro. Transforming into Gemini. Trust Cancer. Working with Leo. Open new projects with Virgo. Resonate with Libra. If this ascendant finds a way to integrate these proposals, it will, a destiny of powerful healer of the human psyche. Generate with optimism and abundance. Communicate with correct, pragmatic, and efficient words. Be emotionally creative and liberating. Express yourself with empathy and sensitivity. Organize with creative modes to work differently. Complement yourself with pleasure and abundance. By having conflicts and crises, renew yourself and gain greater understanding. Trust in your sensitive tenderness. Work with visible creativity and leadership. Open up to the new with intelligent prudence. Resonate with the right ways to do things. If this ascendant does not find a way to integrate these proposals, he will suffer a fate of eternal conflicts of power. Delirious in their ways of investing and spending more than you have. Communicate in rigid and authoritarian ways. Being emotionally disconnected and cold. Show yourself confused, delusional, and misguided. Organize your everyday life without consistency. Follow your daily mood. Compliment yourself with stubborn and controlling people. To lie to avoid assuming when to face a crisis, and to deny your problems. Trust only in what you know and be childishly frightened of the different. The world of work which will be overwhelming and competitive. Being closed and prejudiced to the different. To be enchanted in vain seduction.